Okay, thanks so much for all of you who've joined us today. And so basically, this is our 9th session of Art Radio. To those of you who know what Chelsea just sent an invitation to join, and yes, you're there. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah, but I cannot see you yet.
Okay. I'm going to make myself smaller. Can you see me now?
Perhaps I'll join back in.
Okay. Just leave and join back. Yeah. Dr. Seth, right now I won't join you in. Let Chelsea finish speaking and then we will get you in. Hi, Mayank. How are you doing? Dasta Imadi, Aparna, hello. Okay. Chelsea's there. Better now?
Ritika, I still cannot see you.
I can hear you. I can see you.
Okay, great.
But I don't know why you can't see me. Folks who are who've joined in, if anyone has a problem seeing Chelsea or me or hearing us, just send a comment. Okay, I guess we are okay. Okay, so a little bit of a start. So for those of you who don't know what Art Radio is, the idea of Art Radio was to create a space where we talk about things. Okay, Dr. State says you're both visible and audible, so great. So the thing about this Insta Live and Art Radio was to basically create a space where we talk about the length and the depth of Indian art. And I mean, you put a little step in, and it's a little step into a huge ocean because we're talking, somehow India has this culture which is as prevalent today as it was 2,500 years ago. There seems to be no difference, and which is why this talk by Chelsea is so important, because it transverses time and space with this one painting. And the other thing is that it also returns to a tradition which my teachers started, which I've attended, which is Kavita Singh and Dr. Dr. B.N. Goswami, who both give these amazing lectures about certain paintings and told the whole history of a time through a single painting. And I've seen Chelsea do this as well on YouTube, so I'm looking forward to this. Now, a little bit about Chelsea. Chelsea is the assistant curator at the City Palace Museum in Udaipur, which, because it's the oldest unconquered museum, conquered state and city in Rajasthan at least. So there's this long tradition which is unbroken. It hasn't, things haven't been taken out, things haven't gone abroad. There's this thing which has been there for years, which we are very lucky. And when I went down to Udaipur earlier this year, I was amazed to see the collection out there. She's also heading the educational program, and she works largely with medieval and South Asian artworks. And most importantly, from what I've seen on her YouTube, etc., she's very passionate about inclusion and community engagement. And equally importantly, for both of us, Gangaur is a very woman-centric festival. And it's really interesting that more and more we are hearing about where these women-centric festivals are being hidden down, but they're still there. I mean, there's all this talk, and if you're looking at the pictures behind us, you'll see how much, how big this festival is out there. So as I said, we are looking into time and space. We are looking at something coming from the 18th century. We are looking at something which is still alive today. The whole cart is alive today. The whole palace where this was made and which still exists is alive today. So I've really been excited about this talk. Thanks so much for being here, Chelsea.
Thanks so much, Ritika. Really such a pleasure to be here today. And I think you've summed up exactly why I've chosen to speak about this artwork. One, that it's primarily women-centric, it's a living tradition, and that it captures also a very interesting phase of artistic experimentation, and shows some very typical Mewar elements that you had requested me to talk about. So if you allow, I'd like to jump right into this artwork and try and decode the several layers, see the influences of the school, the Mewar school, the narrative styles, the perspectives, composition, and rendering of sensorial stimulation.
I'd be very impressed.
So the artwork, like Ritika has discussed already, is titled Maharana Sangram Singh in a Gangaur boat procession, a festival that is celebrated till today. The artwork is dates to the early 18th century. The king who is seen here, Maharana Sangram Singh, we know that he was a wonderful patron of the arts. He worked on several art projects during his limited short reigning period from 1710 to 1734. He commissioned art projects such as the Geet Govind, which is very renowned. And we know that during this period, we see the atelier has grown, production has increased, and large paintings such as this one, which is 31 by 31 inches, which is pretty large for the times, was being produced. Prior to this, we do not, we know that there was miniature style forms. Artists worked with on a smaller scale with manuscripts and illustrated manuscripts, and that is why the term miniature painting started to come about. And as they advanced further into say the 17th, 18th century, they started to work with a bigger scale, but the style and the rendering of art was still miniature. So this kind of art forms, for those of you who are interested, is still called a miniature painting, even though it is so large. They of course they were experimenting by this phase because they had such a large canvas to work with. They were rendering now sensorial embodied experience of space and the material world. Artists were known to invite the viewer to kind of immerse into the artwork. As you can see in this painting as well, there's so much happening. There's firecrackers bursting. You can imagine the hustle and bustle as people are navigating through the streets. So they're inviting you to immerse into it, have a sense of the festival. And I've been lucky that I've had the opportunity to situate myself into the setting, because every year, say around March, the festival happens and you see all of this, and it's rather interesting. And for the artist to be able to convey all of this within an artwork is simply amazing. The Mewar school, like other miniature schools of across India, there were several other schools that were existing in miniature form. Each of them were influenced by the topography, the geography, climate, availability and types of resources. Of course, the patrons and the artists as well. They were all influencing the kind of art that was being produced. And if you see this artwork, it too has its typical influences of the region. It is vibrant and bold in its color choices, and vigorously expressive. If one were to try and differentiate between the schools, one would have to look closely at the rendering of the physical characteristics and the color palette, of course. Themes obviously kind of give you a sense of what is the setting, where is the scene located. Now we could jump in further and try and get a sense of what's happening in the painting at surface level. To begin with, this is a painting that is made on paper. It's locally called vasli, which is a handmade paper, layered together, multiple layers of this handmade papers layered together with a layer of gum. And there's a layer of ground, and then that's burnished. And then you have the head of the studio. Artists would work within the atelier. You would have a head of a studio. He would work with his team. He would primarily do the line drawings, and eventually you would have the rest of the team filling in the colors, and finally the lead artist again, who would do the finer detailing. If you zoom in into some of the details of this painting, you will see that they are so intricate, and the artist, the lead artist, definitely knew what he was doing. On the surface, we do not really see any names or text, as is very typical of some of the paintings from our collection. But the back of the painting does have a very long, interesting description of the scene. So you get the names of the king, the nobles present, you get a description of the scene even. And all of that is a very strong resource to tell you about this artwork. The artist, we do not know who he was or what his name was. But we know that artists in the times used to work in consultation with several other people in the team. You would have, for example, librarians or acharyas, the priests, pandits, patrons even. All of their ideas, some of the other way, was influencing this art form. You see a wonderful rendition of the Gangaur scene. Gangaur is happening. Gangaur is a festival that is dedicated to, it's a Hindu festival dedicated to the goddess Gauri and Gauri and Gora, as it's called locally, or Shiv and Parvati and Shiva. And it's an 18-day long festival wherein primarily women-centric festival. Women would pray. If they are unmarried, they would pray for a potential spouse, potential partner. If they were married, they would pray for the long health and long life of their partner. And during this festival, at a certain point, they would move out. Women would move out with idols on their head. These are rather life-size idols. They would adorn them, take them out in procession. The idols could be of wood if they are large in size, or if they are so small in size that they get palm-sized, they could be of clay. And very interestingly, we've had the opportunity to interact with some of these artists, and sometime around this time of the year, they would start preparing these idols, which they would then purchase and then work towards the celebrations. And if you look closely, you see the women traversing through the space, carrying the idols on their head. In other paintings from the collection, you see them also engaging in a circular dance. They would be singing songs. And we know more details about this, this festival from the writings of Colonel James Todd, who was a British political agent at the Mewar court. And I quote, "Every turret and balcony is crowded with spectators, from the palace to the water's edge, and the ample flight of marble steps which intervene from the Tripolia, or the triple portal, which is at the city palace, to the boats, is a dense mass of females in variegated robes, whose scarves but half conceal their ebon tresses, adorned with the rose and the jasmine. A more imposing or more exhilarating sight cannot be imagined, then the entire population of a city thus assembled for the purpose of rejoicing. The countenance of every individual, from the prince to the peasant, dressed in smiles. As you can see, it wasn't just a festival that was celebrated by the locals. It would also have members of the royal family who were participating in this festival. The central frame of the painting, you see the Maharana who's depicted, shown as many as 3 times. He's shown with a nimbus around his head, a gold nimbus around his head. And that is, here is the point where I come to how the artist was rendering and playing around with perspective and composition. If you see this painting, it's skillfully conceived composition, wonderfully rendered. And if you look at the frame, I mean, the artist has beautifully played around with the frame. He's divided it into 3 horizontal panels. In the bottommost, you have the figurines of, I mean, the city scene. You have houses, you have women navigating through the narrow alleys in the central frame, and that is where, I mean, it's typical of this particular artist. We have scholars who have compared some of the styles and some of the work, even though we don't know him, but he has chosen the lake, which is Lake Pichhola, which is in close proximity to the city palace, and which has a ghat that is dedicated to the festival, Gangaur Ghat. He has chosen to render that and keep that in the central frame. You have the Maharana also in focus. He's seated in his boat. Around this central frame of the lake, you have the entire city bustling. You have throngs of people around and emerging from this space in every other corner, filling the entire space. You see the king three times, as I said. That is a technique of simultaneous narration. And they are trying to, he's trying not to, he's refusing a singular composition and temporal focus. He is trying to say that he's trying to convey a sense of progression. The king is progressing through the scene. Watching, if you see the bottom left of the painting, you have a daytime scene. You can see the figures are rather like there is light coming onto their faces, versus the bottom right of the painting. You have there's a progression of time. The figures look like there is some sort of a shadow on their faces, slightly darkened. This again to convey a progression of time towards the evening and towards as the day starts getting darker. If you head closer towards the central frame, you see he's playing around with colors and shadows as well. This is again he's tried to show that there's the lake also. You see it in a light gray shade, and then it darkens further. There's time is progressing. And even if you look at the perspective, there's so much of things in play. You kind of see an elevated view of the scene. It's called a bird's eye view. You have an elevated view of the women navigating themselves, navigating through the alleys. And if you look further, he's experimented with size and color and tried to showcase depth. So all in all, I would say that this has been one such painting that the artist has definitely experimented and tried different perspectives, not really coming down to one single perspective. And that is why I think that this is a very interesting painting.
I've got 20 questions, so tell me when I can butt in.
Yes, absolutely. Now's the right time, I would say.
Okay. To start with, if you're saying it's women-centric, why was the Maharana
Yes.
involved? Secondly, where is Gangaur celebrated? I know it's Jaipur and Udaipur, but where? I mean, I did not know that Gauri was the patron goddess of Udaipur. I thought, so how come the Raja got into this? Third,
Could I
where
ask
would the artist have
one? Sorry, could I take one question at a time?
please?
Yeah, so I think in terms of it being women-centric, it was a festival that was celebrated by the local women folk, also members of the royal family as well. The king and the men would, of course, be mere spectators, and sometimes they would engage in some sort of play. If you see at the top right of the painting, you also see men bursting firecrackers and just enjoying the festivities. It was still primarily women-centric, but the men nonetheless participated as spectators or just going with the flow. And
So,
sorry, your second question was across
no,
where all is it celebrated?
G.
It is a festival that is greatly celebrated in Udaipur, but I think it is celebrated pan-India. Rajasthan particularly is one such place where it is celebrated with a lot of fanfare and gusto.
Because I don't know if I've seen Gangaur paintings from other parts. As you said, there were many schools at this time, and the way you tell them apart is by color. But have we seen Gangaur paintings from other Rajasthani styles of this period?
I haven't personally come across other artworks, but I suppose it would also be a theme that is depicted in the arts. We have several other paintings from our collection that show this festival, but I haven't come across other depictions from other schools.
I haven't either, which is why I'm asking. I mean, this is so. Is the
It
importance?
becomes, I think it's also very interesting that we have a ghat that is dedicated to this festival, and it goes by the same name, the Gangaur Ghat. And to see the kind of relationship, it's a relationship. I mean, it's a festival that brings everyone together. And I think also the significance of water. So the women are going with idols on their head. They're going to the ghat. They're using the water for a symbolic ablution. And I mean, it kind of highlights also the significance of the water and this place in a whole. I don't know how different it would be across India, but this is rather interesting for me.
And would this be around the time when the stepwells were being brought in to Rajasthan by the kings? I mean, could there be any connection between the advent of water into Rajasthan and the Gangaur festival? Because you've got the most beautiful step, right? So.
But this is a lake, and I know that the kings in Mewar focused a lot on the lake, linking the lakes. But I wouldn't know if this has to do necessarily with water or I mean water as in the step wells. But it's a very interesting question, and I think I would look into that further.
I know, because as I said, this painting just brings up so much. I mean, for somebody, the question is, do the royals today participate in this as well? Because it's a really huge festival, and I've been seeing you post pictures on this for about a year now. So, I mean, who all participates today?
So the form has changed definitely. The family does participate, but you do not have the boats and the grand ceremony as such. You would have idols going out to a portion, a ghat within the palace complex, and you would have the ritual in context of the lake again. But it's within the palace complex. They also have the idols within their private shrines. But definitely I would say the form has changed. The form of worship has changed for the family. But it's rather interesting to be able to experience this, you know, at a local level on the streets,
Exactly.
to walk through the, you know, the celebration.
And somebody's asked, what exactly was Maharana Sangram Singh's role in these festivities? He's shown 3 times here in the narrative. Also, is the structure on the left supposed to be a lake palace?
It is the structure on the left is a palace on the lake. It is in the lake palace. I think it is called Jagvilas. I'm not really sure of the name, but it's not the lake palace. The Maharana, like I mentioned, is in this painting is a spectator. He is watching the festivities as the women go to the lakeside. They are doing their worship. They are having the circular formation, the dance, the songs. The other side of the lake, towards the top of the frame, you have the firecrackers and all of that. So he's a spectator watching the festivities.
So, okay. And you're presuming that he wasn't the only one. The whole royal family had to be with him, including the women, etc., which we
The
don't
women would
see
be,
on the list.
yes, yeah. The women would be, I mean, they're all, I mean, you can't really tell who is who apart from the number of women that are portrayed here, which becomes, again, like I said, very interesting for so many women to be portrayed within such a short or small space. You can't tell them apart, but they would definitely be there within the lower portion of the frame.
But at the public side, right? That's the public side of
At
the
a
city.
public side, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we presume that the city palace is the one on the top of the painting, and the public
No,
side of
the way I look at it, I think the top portion of the painting, you have I mean, the side of the city that's opposite the ghat, the Gangaur ghat, and so that's not the city palace. The women would have navigated their way through the city palace, which is not in the scene, but headed towards the ghat. So that's the opposite direction of the lake that is pictured, away from the, say, about 10 minutes or 5 minutes walk from the city palace, is the scene that is showcased at the top.
Yes, I know. It's got some. I've been down to Gangaur Ghat, and it's got some beautiful temples and all, really old temples around it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So today, how would you walk? How would you walk this? What is the path that is taken? I mean, is there a starting point? Do everyone just converge? I've seen pictures of so many people at this ghat. So where do they all come from?
They are all coming from here and there. Like you have several by-lanes in the old city. I think this is a festival that is, you would see it more so in the old city, and you would have every alley, like people coming in from every other alley coming together. You see a lot of celebration, like I've sent pictures to you as well, right before the Jagdish temple, which is downhill from the city palace. There you would see women carrying the idols. You would see some of them, while holding the idols on their heads, they'd be having that circular dance. They'd be singing songs, and then they head towards the ghat, further downhill.
Okay. And then you put the idols into the water and disperse, or is there any ceremony after that as well?
No, so they aren't immersing the idol. There would be symbolic ablution, and then they would return back. I assume they would also have some sort of song and dance at the ghat as well. So again, it's very interesting, the relationship with water. They aren't really, immersing the idols into the water. They are carrying it back with them. The same idol is kept in their houses, is taken care of, and then the next year, following year, again it is taken out in procession.
Oh, okay. So unlike our Ganpati, unlike our Durga Puja, etc., the idols don't go into the water. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's asked anything we can share on the artists. Were there schools of art as a family tradition? Was there a community of artists? And my addition to this question is, you said that you can recognize a bit different Rajasthani paintings by the color palette. So can you elaborate a little bit on that as well?
A lot of questions. Can you help me break it down?
Okay. Let's start with, as you said, we don't know anything about the artists, but we know,
yes.
Were there schools of art? I mean, we know that around this time we had Shivalal, Mohanlal, etc., which were schools of artists at the royal court. But and there was like a family tradition as well as, and I'm presuming also Udaipur had a huge community of artists because Nathdwara is not far from there, etc. But at this period, can we presume that this artwork came out of a karkhana or a community or a family?
Yes. So as I mentioned that this artwork would have been produced in an atelier which would be located at the city palace itself. And as is tradition, you would have several artists who have continued generation after generation in this art form. So you would, like I mentioned, you have a head of studio who is leading the atelier. At this point of time, you have, during Maharana Sangram Singh's time, you have the studio expanding further, a lot of projects happening simultaneously. And whoever he is, he's working with his team, his entire team of artists who are training under him. And you also asked regarding the color palette. What would you like to know about the color palette?
That you can differentiate Rajasthani paintings by color palette. Can you just elaborate a little on that? How do I recognize the difference between a Kota painting or a Bundi painting or a Mewari painting? How do I recognize that by a color palette?
I haven't. I've worked primarily with Mewar, the Mewar school, and for me, I think the moment I've looked at a painting, I mean, the way you know your collection is if you keep looking at it again and again, and there are certain kinds of shades of reds. You have reds, yellows, greens that are very typical of a region. So to tell the collections apart, you really have to keep looking at artworks, and that's how you immediately kind of associate a certain school. I mean, you can identify which school it belongs to.
Yeah, I know Kavita Singh, I once asked her this question and her reply was, you get locked into a room with a bunch of paintings and very soon you can start pulling them apart. So yes, I can understand where you're coming from. But could it also be, because I'm presuming a lot of these were stone colors, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So could the stones of that, from wherever they're being bought, that color that was being made, could that be the differentiating factor, or is that not a factor?
Yes. So like I had said, that it has a lot to do with the kind of artwork that is produced, has a lot to do with the topography, the geography, availability of resources and the type of resources. So definitely that was something that came into play, that you have a certain kind of color palette in place. But of course also the preferences. We know that the Mewar school is very vibrant in its color choices. So there was definitely a preference that was also in play. Very bold in its color choices, vibrant.
And also, And because at this time you've got all these paintings which are showing a topographic scene, and you've got, because I was looking at the map exhibition that you put up, so you got to see the topographic. Has anyone sat and figured out where the artist must have been to paint this picture? Because he must have been on top of a hill. He must have been somewhere. And we are very lucky in Udaipur that things have not changed. You know, so there's no other place that you can look at the way you can look at Udaipur.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, question that you've asked, because this is something that I constantly, when I work with my digital audiences for the museum, it's a question that I'm constantly asking people, like, to kind of think and try and situate yourself within the artwork. If you were the artist, how are you, where are you located? It's very easy with our modern mediums of photography to, say, you're on a certain floor and you're getting a perfect shot. But where was this artist situating himself? And in terms of us working on trying to understand, we've had some of us on the team who have, even for the exhibition at the Smithsonian, we've recce'd sites to try and figure out at least where some of the paintings in the collection were. I mean, where was the artist position? How was he picturing the scene? What was he doing? But we know for a fact that the artists were definitely doing multiple recce's of the site to be able to understand a scene in totality. Like I also mentioned, that he was working with several other members on the team. You had priest, you had the patrons, you had several other members who would be providing input. But nonetheless, the artist would have to look at certain details look at things in more detail to be able to get the essence of it. So even if you look at this artwork, there is, he's captured shadows so beautifully. He's rendered even the smoke that is being emitted from the firecrackers. To that detail, he has gone into depicting this art form. Interestingly, also in some of the paintings that showcase landscape, the artists have tried to, not seen in this, but in those paintings, you see sometimes the artist is pictured himself within the scene. You would see him appearing with a scroll in hand to kind of establish his own identity. But that's definitely, I don't think that's his message, that, okay, this is where this is a position from which I captured the entire scene. He was definitely traveling with the entourage, with situating himself within the setting of the art that he was creating, and doing it multiple times to achieve what he would.
I know, it's, as I said, it's fascinating. And I mean, it's only when you see it, all these paintings together, that you realize how much an artist must have thought about it to be able to paint something like this. I mean, to put the Maharaja 3 times, to make sure the Maharaja isn't there, so that the painting becomes important enough to be in the court painting. Why the patron, why the Maharaja decided to get the scene captured. You know, it's just this one painting can raise so many questions. It's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more times you look at artwork, the more thoughts, the more ideas come about, more questions. The more questions you ask, the more answers you get.
Exactly. So, okay, I've got 2 more people who want to join the exhibition, join this talk, which is, one is Dr. Hasmukh, and one is Betty Santos. So, Betty, Dr. Seth, if either of you have anything more to add, just give us a comment and I will add you both to the conversation. And if anyone else has more questions beyond what Chelsea and I have already raised, which, I mean, as I said, this is an endlessly fascinating painting. So very, very happy to answer those questions. This is a topic which I absolutely adore. Okay, neither of them have marred a comment as yet. So I'm not accepting their thing until they marred. Chelsea, anything else you want, which I interrupted you while you were, because I had so many questions, I interrupted you while you were talking. So is there anything else you want to add?
Not really, not really. But I think if for those who have attended, if you happen to be at the palace, I think if you see this painting in person, you would be able to observe and reflect on some of the points that we have discussed, and even in terms of the perspectives and the composition, how the artist has used the landscape, how he has framed the painting. With natural elements, you have the lake, you have the architectural forms also kind of framing the painting, dividing the bright scene versus the darker scenes. You can see how he's tried to convey progression of time, progression across space. And I think even for us working with artwork such as this, even looking at it closely doesn't do justice. You really need to get, see the painting in person as close as possible. I think even with a magnifying glass to be able to appreciate the minuteness of detail. So if you are in Udaipur, please do visit, look at this artwork in person.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Folks, Chelsea and I will both be here for comments or questions whenever you want. We are putting this on the, I'm putting it on my gram, and it will be on YouTube as well. So please do also subscribe to both of our channels for more stuff like this, because as I said, I've been following Chelsea for a while, and it's really, really interesting what she's been putting out and what the City Palace is putting out, because as I said, it's a very rare occurrence to have this time and space, the linkage between time and space, which you don't see even today in Delhi or any of the other cities. So Chelsea, thank you so much.
Thanks.
I've been looking forward
to this.
See you then. Bye. Switching off now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.